Hello, everyone. My name is Molly Halsey, and I'm the event specialist here at EDB. I will be your host today for our webinar, Application Development and Database Choices, Postgres Support for Non-Relational Data. Today, I'm joined by Bruce Momgen, Vice President and Postgres Evangelist, and Tom Kincaid, GM from Second Quadrant. Before we get started, we're going to jump just into a few housekeeping items. Next slide. Perfect. This presentation is being recorded. We will be sharing the recording along with the slides after the broadcast. The lines are currently muted. If you have a question, please feel free to submit it in the question panel. Today's session is scheduled for a full hour. We expect the presentation to last some of our time, and we will allot any of our extra time for Q&A. If we do not have time to address all questions, we will follow up afterwards with any attendee whose question was not answered. Now, without further ado, I hand it over to Tom and Bruce.
Okay, thanks very much, Molly. Bruce, great to be doing this with you. Here, first Second Quadrant EDB presentation together. And we'll be talking about Postgres, why it's loved by developers, and while it's a great choice for non-relational as well as relational applications. So this is a real honor to be doing this with Bruce. Bruce actually introduced me to Postgres many, many years ago, and I run the Boston Postgres Users Group, and it's a great passion of mine. Bruce, any opening comments for the team out in Video Land?
Did we do webinars before, Tom? Is this our first one together?
I believe this is our first one together.
Wow.
I think we've done classes together before live, but I don't think we've ever done a webinar together. So.
Oh, this will be good.
All right, so here we go. Okay, so we're going to talk a bit about why Postgres has won, while it's the choice relational database and how it's growing, who's adopting it. And then we're going to get into some non-relational techniques with Postgres, a bit about document-centric applications. We'll be doing some things about geographic information systems. Lord willing, we will do a demo during that particular section. And then Bruce is going to talk a little bit about data, business intelligence, and some elements of using Postgres at the center of your database. So we won't hit all of these in any great depth, but we want to give you a sense of the flavor of what Postgres is capable of doing beyond using it for relational applications. Bruce, any additional comments on this?
You know, it's kind of funny, Tom. You would have thought we would give this type of presentation all the time, but you know, it's sort of like when you're living with this technology for so long, you just get used to a lot of the stuff it has, right? It's just like, oh yeah, we have GIS, and oh, you know, we can do all this other stuff, and oh yeah, this problem is easy to solve with this other thing. But you don't understand somebody coming from the more traditional relational world, kind of coming into this and saying, whoa, where did that come from,
yeah.
Right? So that's what this talk really is sort of a stepping back, pretending we don't do this all the time, and actually come at it from a perspective of somebody who doesn't really work with this, and
the think different talk, right? Think different, right? Well, about Postgres.
Think different. Yeah. The joke was the original title, I think, for this one was, "This is not your grandfather's database."
Right. There you go. All right, yes.
That was a working title, yeah.
Okay. Maybe that title will come back in a future implementation of this talk. All right, so on to Postgres. So we're going to talk a bit about the statistics behind Postgres and how it's won. I'll give you a little bit at the high level marketing front, and then I'm going to have Bruce dive into some of the community elements of things he and the broader community have been able to accomplish over the years. Okay, so let's get started. So some data. So some people like data. We're a presentation about databases. We should have a little bit of data. So DB Engine's Postgres won DB Engine of the Year in both 2017 and 2018. That's across 343 different databases. Postgres won, and it was chosen based on how people react to it, how much people love using it. Then it just kind of gets a little sense of things. If you look at that graph on the left, it'll talk about the most commonly used databases, and you'll see that MySQL is first and Postgres is second. That continues to go up year over year. If you look at the most loved databases, this is according to the Stack Overflow survey. They surveyed developers, and which database do you love the most? Well, Postgres came in second, but in terms of relational databases and even general purpose databases, object relational databases, Postgres is, number one and growing every year. So this is not, this is this claim that we are the most loved relational database is backed up by data. And then, as you can see, there's the popularity as the DB engine's popularity continues to grow. So Bruce, you've been at this with Postgres for a while. How's it feel when you see these kind of numbers and this kind of?
Yeah, when we started you're talking about the graphs. I have a graph that I often use where I talk about the adoption of Postgres, and of course, being with this for 24 years, we started out way at the bottom, right? We weren't on this chart, right? But what was really interesting for me is that we always had a steeper adoption curve than anyone else. And if you have a steeper adoption curve than anyone else, eventually you will overtake them. It may take 20 some years, but I think that's one of the key things is just getting a steady adoption, not losing people, providing technology that's really ready for the market, and just continue to do that year after year.
Once they go Postgres, they don't go back, right?
That's right. Very rare. Very rare. There's one company that did leave it for one specific project, and it caused a huge stir, and there's blogs about it, and I kind of, somebody said, "What's your comment on that?" I said, "Well, the fact that somebody left our database is news, right? Somebody leaving Oracle or MySQL, that's not news at all, right? So, I'm going to take that as a win."
Gotcha. Once every now and then. All right, good. All right, so just to kind of give all the major cloud vendors, this has really happened in the last, I would say, 5 years. They've all adopted, they all have Postgres offerings. So it's not just us. Everybody realizes that people want it, they're using it. And if you're going to have a database as a service and not offer Postgres, you're really not going to have a very viable database as a service. So kind of getting along that. So Bruce, would you mind?
I was going to comment on the cloud thing. First thing, we should probably get Alibaba on there.
Okay, yeah.
They're obviously a huge provider in China. Second, Amazon had a big announcement yesterday that they're going to be open sourcing a fork of Postgres that has compatibility with Sybase and Microsoft SQL. So again, not only are they providing Postgres, but they're actually investing in Postgres, and they're sort of making it a strategic decision for their industry.
They're contributing. Yeah, they're contributing to the ecosystem.
Right. I mean, same thing with IBM, which has DB2, yet they're providing Postgres, right? So, and Microsoft has Microsoft SQL, but they're providing Postgres. I mean, this is just, you would not have seen this 10 or 20 years ago of somebody actually promoting a competing open source product to their own proprietary one. Would be crazy. Now you can't do it. You can't remain relevant unless you really embrace the open source relational.
Gotta embrace the world's most loved database, all right?
There you go. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So Bruce, would you take us through, I put together some statistics around the community. Would you mind taking us through this, since you live and breathe this every day? And
I kind of love this graph. As I said before, been at this for 24 years, and it is really weird. I mean, even going back to the adoption thing, it's sort of like, I was thinking about this morning, it's sort of like, you have a child and you change their diaper and you get them to walk, and you finally get them to kindergarten or school, and then they finally go to college, and all of a sudden they become president of the United States. And you're like, what happened? Like, why? I remember when, the person was a child or an infant, now they're president of the United States. Not that Postgres is the president of the United States, but the point is that when you're raising a child, you don't really think, oh, this is going to be, something, that's going to have, worldwide impact, or something that's going to have, a tremendous amount of longevity and really help to define the relational market. You just kind of raise the child as you raise the child. You do what's best for it. You try and you try not to make a lot of mistakes with the child, right? And you try and grow and tender it and make sure it's fed and make sure it's healthy and so forth. And that's kind of what this chart shows, that really for those 24 years, we have been putting out regular releases. We have been, you can see there's probably between 150 and 220 features that come out pretty much. This is a yearly release cadence. There's really no other relational database that does this, where you're putting out that many features in that yearly short amount of time. But again, it's because of the way the open source system works, because of the way that open source development happens. It's very incremental. It's very high reliability. So you can do this kind of thing. And proprietary databases, I think they kind of admit, really can't. It's just really too hard within an organization to put out this amount of volume
Yeah.
at high reliability.
Yeah, 150,
And I think
plus
that's
features
a
a
great,
year. Mhm.